Welcome back to World Talks Context. I'm Klaudia Czerwińska, and just as I promised you a second ago, we're going to take a closer look at the speech given by Viktor Orbán at the EU Parliament. And for that, I'm joined by my first guest of today, Piotr Kaczyński, EU expert from Geremek Foundation. We are encountering some unexpected technical problems, and we will be back with you in just a second, so please stay with us. And we're back in the studio of the World Talk Context. I'm Klaudia Czerwińska, and after some technical issues, we are actually joined by our guest, Piotr Kaczyński, an EU expert from the Geremek Foundation. Good morning, sir. Can you hear me?
Good morning, of course. Good morning.
Wonderful.
To you, and thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for joining me today. So we are focusing today on Viktor Orbán's speech at the European Parliament. In his speech, he said, I quote, "The European Union needs to change, and I would like to convince you about that today." Do you think that what he said and his methods were convincing enough, and how successful was he in convincing the rest of the EU Parliament that what he says is factual?
Absolutely not. Viktor Orbán did not win any new votes or support. Quite to the contrary, Viktor Orbán's words were met with staunch opposition to whatever he was saying. He was clearly trying to portray a different reality that is out there, and there were plenty of voices in the chamber and outside of the chamber criticizing Viktor Orbán's actions. We saw Prime Minister of Hungary who was trying his old tactics of saying nice words in the outside of Hungary and having a completely opposite policy back home. And all this criticism that we have heard is actually based on facts of allowing Russian spies into the Schengen zone, on basically negotiating with foreign powers that are detrimental to the survival of our key ally Ukraine, without any mandate, abusing the names of being the presidency of the council, etc., etc. So there's a number of very significant criticism going towards Viktor Orbán, and he was rightly pointed at it. And the logic out there that was put bluntly to him by Ursula von der Leyen is very important to remember.
So, giving those larger-than-life speeches, does Viktor Orbán still believe he can address the MEPs and be taken seriously?
Look, if you just listen to his speech and disregard reality or the political context of the country he's coming from, or what he has done over the recent months, this was a nice speech. But that's exactly what Viktor Orbán does. He will tell you what you need to hear. He will speak Eurospeak. But then back home in Hungary, in Budapest, we've had so many incidents, anti-European, anti-Western, the former president of the European Commission told him at one point that he was a dictator.
So definitely it seems like Viktor Orbán talks the talk, but he doesn't seem to be walking the walk when it comes to this Euro talk, as you mentioned. This pro-Russian rhetoric and Orbán's approach towards the EU, how dangerous is it to Hungarian democracy? Is this a reason for concern, or we're not there just yet?
It's a very good question, and we see in the Polish context how not easy it is to win back democracy over a semi-authoritarian regime that was in place for some time, that is abusing power to maintain power and profit from this power. However, the bottom line is that we may see, and there's a little promise out there, that the Hungarian society is becoming to be tired of Viktor Orbán leadership. And if it is up to the Hungarian society to change it at some point, then we may have yet another Hungary. But then this is up to the Hungarians themselves, rather than anybody from the outside. The outside world can only point to the mistakes, to the misdoings, to different logics, alternatives, etc. But we clearly would prefer to have somebody who's rational in Budapest and with whom the EU could make agreements, or EU being other member states, make agreements about. There are such big challenges ahead of us, including security, but including transition, the energy transition, including the digital issues, including competitiveness. All those issues that also Viktor Orbán mentioned are very important, but his credibility is zero.
So we spoke about possible threats to Hungarian democracy in the context of Viktor Orbán. What about the European Union structures? We know that Hungary is holding the rotating presidency, the rotating EU presidency as of now. What are we seeing within the European Union structures? Is there something to be worried about when it comes to Hungary?
Well, of course it is worrisome, because we are in the European Union as musketeers. Nobody's left behind. And we should not leave behind countries only because they have dictatorial tendencies. And we need to take care of them as well. This is one big family, one for all. And all for one. And in this regard, we cannot disregard Hungary and what is going on there. It would be easy to amputate. It would be easy to cut off, to throw them out, as some people suggest. There was an interview a couple of days ago for leading European newspapers of former French President Hollande, who was calling for multi-speed Europe, because clearly this big Europe of 27 is not capable of working properly. I fully disregard, or disagree rather, with President Hollande on this matter. This is a one common ship of 27 member states, and we need to steer the boat together. Otherwise, we will be simply torn apart by big wolves out there in the outside world that are just waiting to do this. We had this week a very important vote on sanctions against China, and that was very divisive, very important, but also showing everybody, including our Chinese partners, that this is a serious power and it's still very much united, even if internally sometimes it is being divided. However, those divisions are weakening us. This is not something that strengthens us. This is quite clear.
One of the biggest subjects in Europe as of now is safety and security and open borders as well, considering the migration situation. One of the comments made by Orbán at the EU Parliament was about how the Schengen open border system will, I quote, fall apart. Would you say that this is just fear-mongering, or is it a real danger considering the migration situation in Europe?
Migration is definitely a major challenge for Europeans today, and it is a major issue that needs to be addressed. How it is addressed is an important topic, and I worry that the Hungarian Council presidency, not EU presidency, is simply not being trusted by fellow member states and fellow governments to be able to take this issue forward. And a lot of people are simply waiting for the incoming presidencies to deal with this matter more substantially. So this is lost occasion, lost opportunity. But this comes down to the fact that nobody trusts the government in Budapest.
I came across this sentence as I was getting ready for our interview, saying, with rising influence of a Hungarian-led new group in the EU Parliament, the Patriots for Europe is the evidence of the political climate in Europe and showing it slowly but surely is shifting in Orbán's favor. What's your opinion on this statement?
Yeah, which one? Which opinion? Because there were opinions of Viktor Orbán which said that European Parliament should be dismantled. Is this the opinion we are talking about? No. It is more a criticism over the so far policy on migration that pretty much everybody agrees has been more of a failure than a success. We have an incoming policy coming into effect in the next time that some leaders like Donald Tusk are saying is already outdated. It is not addressing, for example, the Ukrainian refugee influx into the EU. When you have a dictator or para-dictator, semi-dictator who is saying something rightful, does it mean that everything he says is rightful? No. He is incidentally pointing and abusing the topic of migration, which is delicate and difficult topic, and plays on it. Are the Patriots of Europe on the rise? Well, this is simply far right redressed. Look who's there in Patriots of Europe. It's Viktor Orbán, Fidesz politicians, together with former parliament ID, Identity and Democracy. This is openly European far right, full stop. ESN is even more to the far right of some politicians, namely AfD, that have been thrown out of ID. So those are politicians and political forces that are sitting on the extreme, and they are to some extent dictating the policy because of their popularity, because of the topics that they put on the agenda. However, it doesn't mean that the means that they are using, the offer that they are proposing on how to solve the issues are actually the correct ones. And we saw and we see in Poland, for example, that the current government is having an open ear to the problems that are being identified by the far right, because those are societal problems. But the policy choices and the how to address and how to answer to the situations cannot be far right, because if we leave it to far right, we have discrimination, we have breaking of rule of law, we have the situation as we have had in Poland over many years. This is the situation that we continue to have in Hungary.
So do you think with the rise of far-right parties in Europe, because we've seen this as there was a number of elections taking place, there will be more people to listen to Orbán in the European Parliament?
There will be more people, but there will be more criticism and there will be more divisions. The parliament will be probably even more heated on the issues such as the migration question in the years to come. We have seen a very heated debate. There was singing, Bella Ciao, and some other shouts out there in the chamber. And this is probably the parliament we will see in the future. Politically, it might be interesting to watch a little different process, which is the fact that the European People's Party, the largest party in the European Parliament, is sitting exactly in the middle between the left side and the far right side. And it is up to the EPP to make the choice with whom they cooperate. We are coming into...
I'm sorry, but unfortunately our studio time came to an end. But I hope that we'll be able to touch upon this subject in the future again. Thank you so much for joining me this morning. Piotr Kaczyński, EU expert from the Geremek Foundation. Thank you for joining me.
Thanks for having me.
And so this was World Talk Context. I'm Klaudia Czerwińska. Please stay tuned here on TVP World for more news and features.